Cureton, C-U-R-E-T-O-N. I am a videographer who owns and runs my own company called Memory Capture Video. Today I'm going to talk about what I do and my journey to this point. If I say something that you missed, feel free to stop me and ask me to repeat. Also, I'm going to be showing later on some video clips. Some of it has audio, some of it does not. This will be a talk about technology, about the arts, and a little bit about religion. While those three things have been interlinked for centuries, these days they seem to stand apart more than I think they should. I grew up on Long Island, just outside of New York City. I was an average kid who was always fascinated with technology and with capturing moments. I would collect gadgets that other people were throwing out and tinker with them for hours. I wish I was one of those whiz kids who could take anything apart, fix it, and put it back together again, but I wasn't. I was one of those kids who would take everything apart and have no idea how to put it back together again and just end up with parts all over the floor. I started the career I am in now when I was about 8 years old. We couldn't afford video equipment, but I had an old audio cassette recorder, and I would record Saturday morning cartoons and edit them together. This was in the early 1970s, so long before there was cable and digital media and Blu-ray players or DVD players or even VCRs. Before you could see or hear anything on television more than once, unless the networks decided to run it again. However, since I was recording them, on audio at least, I was listening to my favorite television and radio programs over and over again. In those days, we had many radio stations, but in New York, which was a top media hub, we only had a few television stations. ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, and two independent stations, WOR, WPIX. So there just was not much variety. But then in high school, cable arrived, along with lots of channels. MTV, which was a really big deal for us at the time, and paid channels like HBO. The Walkman came out, and sound quality in audio improved greatly. This was a huge jump in technology, and I was all over that. I thought it was great, but I never thought I could make a career out of it. I went to college not knowing what I wanted to do. Growing up in New York, at a big high school, and being recruited by New York schools that were huge, I decided to go small, and I chose a college in Ohio with about 1,800 students. I wanted to go to smaller classes and have a more intimate feel. Although it had a radio station and I was a DJ there, it did not have any kind of television or video programs, which at the time was fine with me. I had a great experience there. Well, during college, I felt the call to go into ministry. This was not in any way a foreign concept. I grew up in a church. My father was a minister. My grandfather was a minister. My mom was a church education director, and I was active since before I could remember. So I pursued that track. Also during college, there was another huge technical jump, the personal computer. When I was in high school, there was the Commodore computer, and you could do some typing, you could run basic programs, and we played games at the arcade like Pac-Man and Asteroids and Pong, but all of us used typewriters to do all of our work. We packed them up, we took them to college, and we never used them. The year I got to college, which was 1983, was the year they opened a computer center, and all the students could sign up for computer time and use computer stations that were tied to the college's mainframe computer. During my first year there, the Macintosh computer came out, and the age of the personal computer began. This revolutionized how we did work. Now you could save all your stuff on floppy disks. You could make your storage mobile. Plus, you could own your very own computer, even though no one except computer majors actually did. When I graduated college, I knew one person who had their own computer. He was a computer major. When I started seminary, 1 year later, during orientation, we were told that if we did not have our own computer, we should expect to be 1 grade point average below everyone else. In seminary, we did a lot of writing, plus everything was on a computer by then. Plus, the computer lab at Princeton University, where I went to grad school, was on the other side of campus, about a 50-minute round-trip walk, so it was a bit impractical. I'm mentioning this to remind you all that even back in the 1980s, technology was moving incredibly fast. In 4 years, we went from nobody had a computer to you can't do any work without one. Also, while I was in college, the VCR came out. Suddenly, we could watch movies whenever we wanted to. For me, this was a huge breakthrough. Stuff I did on audio, I could now do on video. It was great. I loved it. When I got to seminary, I applied for and was hired by the media services team there. And that was right up my alley. The job, however, really stank. Most churches have always been rather slow to adapt to technology, and seminaries were not much different. My first year there, we were in charge of setting up slide projectors and overhead projectors and devices that I was convinced were older than me, and how to try to fix them when they broke down, which they did a lot. But the worst was having to record chapel services and all the talks that happened in the chapel. We did that in a dark, dank, dirt floor basement beneath the chapel. One of those rooms with a swinging light bulb, and we were wondering what was crawling around on the floor around our feet. Excuse me.
Steve?
Yes.
1 second. I'm having a little technical issue.
While they're fixing that, am I talking too fast?
No, you're good.
Okay. Okay. This is why I wrote everything down, otherwise I just talk way too fast. So I just wrote everything out so I can talk slow.
Did it record the beginning part? It's saying
It did, but it's not
the
there.
temp. Yeah, there's nothing. What was that? Wait, just hold on. Just 30 seconds. Can you guys pause? That's pretty pause.
We should pause.
Yep.